Welcome to the second part of Workplace Evolution at the Last Invention channel. Forget the fairy tales about genius inventors saving the world. The Industrial Revolution wasn't launched by Steam, it was launched by a business model. Picture this. You invent the very first iPhone, but it costs $1 million. How do you sell it? You don't. That was James Watt's nightmare. His steam engine was brilliant, but for mine owners, it was financial suicide. Nobody wanted to risk the capital. Enter Matthew Boulton. He didn't just tweak the engine, he hacked the economy. He went to the skeptics with a radical offer. Don't buy our machine, we'll install it for free. You just give us 1/3 of the money you save on coal. It was a zero-risk deal. Boulton and Watt weren't selling hardware anymore. They were selling pure profit. That single subscription model, the SaaS of the 18th century, is what actually built the modern world. And it divided humanity forever into those who own the infrastructure and those who just operate it. Think SaaS was born in Silicon Valley? Think again. It was actually invented in 1775 by two Brits, James Watt and Matthew Boulton. They didn't sell hardware, they sold efficiency. Watt would walk into a coal mine and say, I'll install the engine for free, but for the next 25 years you pay me 1/3 of the money you save on coal. Who needs that much power? To truly scale, SaaS needs an enterprise client. And that client was war. Modern industry was born to wear the army. The king needs 100,000 uniforms. The army killed the craft and created the factory. People were forced into workshops and made to work in perfect sync. Here's the final irony. Watt's engine didn't even work until John Wilkinson, the cannon king, applied his cannon boring technology to drill the engine's cylinders. The steam engine is a byproduct of the cannon industry, installed in a factory that runs like an infantry unit. Welcome to the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. Steam engines gave factories power, but they created an architectural nightmare. To distribute that power, you needed a forest of leather belts and spinning shafts. In this system, the human wasn't a creator, he was a cheap biomechanical adapter, a meat gear, and when a belt snapped, it was lethal. But the cold math of the 19th century was simple. A broken leather belt cost £5 to replace, a dead worker in 0. Yet, this system had a fatal flaw. Not the danger, but the friction. 30% of all that steam power was lost just turning the shafts. Capital hit a physical ceiling. Coal and steam had to die to make way for a new, ruthless density of energy, oil, and the internal combustion engine. To feed the new machines, we pierced the earth, but the pressurized depths fought back in towering whaling geysers of crude oil. Yet, capital abhors chaos. It demands scale. Enter the Zoroaster, the first oil tanker. As black oil flooded its iron belly, a global artery tore open. The machine found its blood. The deadly forest of leather belts had to burn. Engines and turbines were harnessed to forge a new invisible force, electricity. Now power flowed directly to the machine. No friction, no limits. By the end of the 19th century, a new ruthless density of industrial capital had arrived. They told you Henry Ford paid his workers an unheard of $5 a day so they could afford the very cars they were building. Forget that sentimental garbage. Before 1913, a worker was a craftsman. He controlled his own time and his own movements. The assembly line destroyed that autonomy. For the first time in history, the human wasn't operating the tool. The moving belt began dictating the speed of human muscle contraction. The work became so mind-numbing and repetitive that employee turnover at Ford's factories smashed through 370%. People fled in droves, unable to survive the transformation into biomechanical robots. $5 a day was not an act of capitalist humanism. It was a desperate bribe, a dehumanization tax. The price capital had to pay for the total, unconditional surrender of human time. This deal made the investors unfathomably rich. They proved the golden rule of the new industrial world. To generate super profits, you have to steal the time of millions and force it to move at the exact speed of your assembly line. Assembly lines created a new problem. Factories started pumping out more physical goods than humans could track. The industrial monster was drowning in its own invoices and logistics. Enter the office, forget the romance of white collars and elegant typewriters. The first open space offices weren't built for collaboration. They were designed by engineers as giant biological motherboards. Desks were arranged in a rigid grid, while managers tracked the throughput of every living node. These people weren't creators. They were flash microchips, human algorithms routing data. The typewriter killed individual handwriting, turning text into a standardized, interchangeable part. Capital had built the world's first neural network, powered by millions of cheap clocks, and this living computer ran at maximum capacity. Until a company called International Business Machines, or IBM, introduced the punch card. In the 60s, naive designers invented the Action Office to give clerks freedom and creativity. But capital didn't care about creativity. It cared about the density of flash per square foot of commercial real estate. The gray cubicle. It wasn't a personal office, it was a docking station, a storage unit for organic peripheral. Why the sudden walls? Because corporations found a new, perfect overseer. The personal computer. The monitor locked your eyes, the keyboard chained your hands. They sold the PC as a tool of empowerment. Lie! It was a weapon of mass destruction for white-collar jobs. A single piece of software, the electronic spreadsheet, wiped out entire departments in months. The man in the cubicle felt like a god with Excel. In reality, he just helped Capital fire 50 of his colleagues, while training the digital system that would eventually come for him. At the turn of the millennium, they sold us the ultimate escape plan. The laptop, Wi-Fi, the smartphone. Tech giants like Apple branded themselves as rebels. Think different. They promised to tear down the cubicle and let you work from a beach in the tropics. But it was a trap. We didn't leave the office followed us. The corporation decentralized the cubicle and put it directly into your pocket. You are now wearing a digital ankle monitor. And the greatest trick Capital ever pulled was making you pay $1,000 to buy it yourself. The 9 to 5 is dead. Your bedroom, your vacation, your dinner table, every second of your life has been annexed by the company. You are completely free to work anywhere, as long as you are available everywhere, all the time. Today, they tell you artificial intelligence is a co-pilot, a magical tool designed to make you a 10x employee. Don't be naive, you aren't being upgraded. You are being extracted. Every prompt you write, every correction you make is unpaid labor. You are manually transferring your years of hard-earned domain knowledge into a neural network. You are meticulously building your own synthetic clone. And once that clone is fully trained, Capital will have absolutely zero use for your biology. Why pay a human for a sick day when a server farm works for pennies? The white-collar era is over. The biological router has been bypassed. The greatest lie of the industrial age is that working harder makes you richer. It is a mathematical absurdity. Biology is your ultimate bottleneck. You have 24 hours in a day, a biological need for sleep, and a tendency to burn out. You cannot scale your flesh. If you sell your time for a salary, you will always lose to the person who owns the infrastructure. The entire history of automation is simply the transfer of wealth from labor to capital. Upgrading your skills to become a better employee with AI is a survival strategy on a sinking ship. You must cross the line. Stop being the labor that gets automated. Become the capital that owns the automation. Today, capital isn't just steel and concrete. It is a fleet of synthetic agents you can deploy for pennies. Your job is no longer to work. Your job is to architect the system. Own the automations or be automated.